Okay, welcome back to Ghost Grave. We are on chapter 10 today. Hope you enjoyed your long weekend. Okay, so let's review. Okay, chapter 9. Josh went and found Willie's grave for his leg, remember? And Willie was the one that helped him find it. Then Willie took Josh to go to where the rest of his body was buried. Remember, it was kind of a long haul. Okay, he was a little bit tired getting there, but Josh did decide that he was going to help Willie. Now Willie wanted him to do it right then, and Josh's like, "No way, I can't do it. Okay, I'm too tired." So, but he did agree that he was going to help Willie. Okay, so let's continue. Chapter 10. Willie talked nonstop on our way downhill. I think he was afraid if he let me say anything, I might change my mind about moving his leg bones. When I was alive, he said, the mines employed 1,000 men. A lumber mill and a stone quarry thrived in Carbon City, too. Those coke ovens looked like big old beehives. They blazed away night and day. It was hard for me to picture so much activity in sleepy little Carbon City. Willie went with me as far as Aunt Ethel's driveway. Then I walked alone back to the house. As I hung the compass on the nail, I was surprised to hear the mantel clock strike twice. I felt as if I'd been gone all day, but it was only 2:00. Willie was right. I probably could have dug the bones and reburied them yet today. My tired legs were not the whole reason I had refused. I needed time to think through the whole process, to make sure I wasn't overlooking a potential problem. Once I started digging, I wanted to finish the whole plan quickly. A note from Aunt Ethel was taped to the door. Josh, Muriel invited me to go to the raspberry farm with her to get fresh berries. Aunt Ethel. After eating a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and a piece of chocolate cake, I went to the barn and found a sturdy spade and a small hatchet for hacking through the rose bush. The hatchet fit in my backpack, but I'd have to carry the spade. I decided to leave the casket behind, rotted or not, and put the bones in my backpack. The less weight I had to haul uphill, the better. Holding the spade handle in my hands, I tried to imagine actually digging in the cemetery. Thinking about it made my palms sweaty. I wasn't afraid of seeing the bones, but I was definitely scared of getting caught. No matter how much I justified moving Willie's leg, I couldn't ignore the fact that if anyone saw me, I would have a huge problem. Maybe I should dig the leg up at night, as Willie had suggested. But at night, I have to use a flashlight to see what I was doing, and that might call more attention to me than if I did it in the daytime. In my mind, I returned to the cemetery, thinking how it would look after dark. I remembered the road that went past it. I saw the rows of gravestones and the faded flowers. Flowers! That's what I needed. I would take flowers with me, so if someone happened to pass by and see me digging, I would appear to be planting flowers on a grave. After I had the leg bones safely in my backpack, I would put the flowers in the hole so it wouldn't be obvious that the grave had been disturbed and something removed. Next problem. Where was I going to get flowers to plant on the grave? Back home, every large grocery store had a floral department that sold flowering plants, but the Carbon City Market didn't sell flowers. And there was no other retail stores within bike riding distance. I couldn't ask Aunt Ethel to drive me to Diamond Hill to buy flowers unless I told her why I wanted them, and that was out of the question. Then I remembered the flowers along the sides of the house. I could dig up a clump of those yellow daisies, keep them in a bucket of water overnight, and plant them in the cemetery tomorrow morning. I decided to dig 2 clumps of daisies and plant one on Aunt Florence's grave. That way, I wouldn't feel so guilty about taking Aunt Ethel's flowers without permission. I wondered when Aunt Ethel would get home. Her note didn't say what time she'd left, but this was probably my best chance to dig up flowers. Hoping I'd hear Muriel's car when it came down the driveway, I got the shovel and dug up enough daisies to fill a big bucket. I took small clumps from several spots so it wouldn't be obvious that the flowers were missing. I carried the daisies and the shovel out to the treehouse and looked around for Mrs. Stray. If I expected to tame her and her babies, I needed to spend as much time with her as I could, but I didn't see her. The food hadn't been touched since I had refilled the bowl that morning. I hoped Mrs. Stray was okay. I was eager to tell Willie my brilliant idea about the daisies, but he didn't show up. So I climbed the ladder and went inside. I was too nervous to read. All I could think about was what I planned to do the next day. I looked out the treehouse window at the cat dishes below. A twig snapped. 3 deer stood near the base of the treehouse, their black tails flicking as they grazed. I scarcely breathed, for fear I would startle them. The largest deer kept looking back into the woods, as if she saw or heard something. Soon the other 2 stopped eating and looked in the same direction. Their ears perked forward. All of them seemed curious. The big doe took 2 steps forward. The big doe took 2 steps toward whatever she was watching, then stopped again. A few seconds later, I spotted Mrs. Stray moving slowly toward her bowls. The deer's eyes followed her. She walked a few feet, then stopped and looked at the deer before continuing. When she reached the bowls and started lapping the water, the 3 inquisitive deer stepped closer. I imagined them saying, "What in the world is that animal? Let's go closer and find out what it smells like." Mrs. Stray crunched some cat food, but she kept glancing up nervously as the deer approached. When they were only 3 feet away, she fled into the woods. The deer trotted after her. I realized I was smiling. I'd climbed the ladder feeling anxious, but the animals in the forest made me happy. If I had any sense, I thought, I'd leave well enough alone, enjoy the woods, try to tame the cats, and not take any chance of possibly ruining my summer by getting arrested for removing bones from the cemetery. Even as I thought that, I knew I would follow my plan to help Willie. If I didn't help him, who would? Willie needed a friend, and as far as I knew, there were no other candidates. I returned to Aunt Ethel's house. She was in the kitchen, rinsing a colander full of raspberries. "Look what we're having for dinner," she said. I helped myself to a raspberry. "Yum," I said. I took another berry. I stopped at the post office on the way home. There weren't any letters. I knew it was too soon to get a letter from Mom, but I couldn't help feeling disappointed. My plans for the next day soon took over my thoughts. I needed to have everything ready so I could get an early start. "Is there any bottled water?" I asked. "I get thirsty in the treehouse." Aunt Ethel said, "No point paying for bottled water when perfectly good well water runs out of the faucet free." She opened a cupboard and handed me an empty plastic container. "You can use this." I filled the container with water, pushed the lid on tight, and put it in my backpack, hoping it wouldn't leak. I added a brown bathroom towel to my backpack to wrap the leg bones in. I looked under the bathroom sink, hoping to find a pair of rubber gloves to borrow, but there weren't any. I hadn't found any garden gloves in the barn either. I decided not to ask Aunt Ethel for gloves because I didn't want to explain why I needed them, and I couldn't think of a believable excuse. The less I said about my intentions, the fewer questions she would have. If the rose thorns were too bad, I'd pull my shirt sleeves down over my hands. I considered packing myself a lunch, but decided against it. Once I started this project, I wanted to finish as quickly as I could, and I already had enough to carry. Besides, I wouldn't want to eat a sandwich that had shared the backpack with Willie's leg bones. Before I went to bed, I wrote another letter. June 18th. Dear Mom and Stephen, I found the treehouse, and it's haunted. A ghost named Willie, an old coal miner, hangs out there. Aunt Ethel says Aunt Florence used to see him, and now I can see him. Willie wants me to dig up his leg bones, which are buried in the Carbon City Cemetery, and move them to where the rest of his body is buried. I'm going to do it. Your gravedigger son, Josh. I put down my pen, smiling to myself as I imagined how Mom and Stephen would react when they read this. I had not yet mailed the first 2 letters. I hadn't known Aunt Ethel was going to the post office today. Now I debated whether to send the letters one at a time or all together. I decided one at a time would probably be best, so I put the first letter about shooting the bat in one of the addressed stamped envelopes Mom had sent with me. "You'll have no excuse not to write," she had said when she gave me the envelopes. I laid the sealed envelope and the other 2 letters in the drawer with my underwear. Next, I wrote a note to Aunt Ethel. I've gone to visit the cemetery again. Then I plan to hike up an old gravel road to the Carbon River. I might not get home until late, so don't worry if I miss lunch. I planned to leave Aunt Ethel's note on my bed when I left in the morning. In case I didn't return, I wanted the search and rescue teams to know where to look for me. The next day was Friday, June 19th, the day the summer team played its first tournament game. I wondered what the other guys on the team would think if they knew what I was doing while they played baseball. They'd never believe it. I knew tomorrow was either going to be the most exciting day of my life or the most disastrous. Okay, that's the end of chapter 10. So he's planning this out. Okay, he's getting he's thinking about flowers so that he has an excuse just in case he gets caught. He's just planting flowers on the grave. Okay, he's taking the towel so he doesn't actually have to touch the bones, right? So that was a smart move. He's thought of water, right? So he's bringing a spade, like a shovel, to dig the stuff up. The only thing he couldn't find were the gloves. So we'll have to see how it turns out. I will see you tomorrow for, chapter 11. See you then.